Despite having very limited screen time, Sarah Lynn is easily one of the most popular characters in BoJack Horseman. There is so much discourse surrounding everything about her, from her child star upbringing to her tragic death. With the world objectifying her at a young age, glaring allusions to SA by her stepfather, and a superficial support system at best, it really feels like Sarah Lynn never stood a chance. We're gonna find out if that is the case, examine her mythologization in the show and the fandom, and the contradictions in her relationship with BoJack. But first, a quick spoiler warning for what we're going to cover. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Sloan Stowe. I make videos on TV and movies. If you like that kind of thing, subscribe so you don't lose me. Okay, let's start.
I did this to her. And everyone was just standing around like, well, this was bound to happen, but it wasn't bound to happen.
Except it kind of was. Show creator Raphael Bob Waxberg told Vox, "I think we've always known that Sarah Lynn was heading toward trouble. In her very first episode, her kiss-off to BoJack is like, 'There's no hope for me. I'm going to surround myself with enablers until I die tragically young.' We never tried to hide the ball on that. Throughout almost every appearance she's had, there's been some foreshadowing that this is not going to end well." To IndieWire, Raphael said, "I think we knew what was going to happen to Sarah Lynn to some extent. Not all the detours and cul-de-sacs on the way there, but we knew the story we were going to tell with Sarah Lynn. So from Sarah Lynn's conception as a character, there's always been this sense of inevitability."
Surround myself with sycophants and enablers until I die tragically young.
What?
Yeah, it's pretty much too late for me.
From there, I guess the question to ask is, why? Despite outwardly pitching the series as not having a large focus on the entertainment industry, in reality, Raphael always intended for it to be about Hollywood. And the show does this all the time, by poking fun at common occurrences or emphasizing real problems within the industry, typically through jokes and storylines, yeah, but also through the characters themselves. BoJack Horseman is often praised for its portrayal of complex characters, and for good reason. But in their conceptions, for the vast majority of these characters, the writers approach them the same way. They start with character tropes, and because the show is about the industry, many of them reflect the archetypes inside of it. The real-world inspirations behind the show's famous characters especially are often debated within the fandom because their circumstances fit the pattern of several public figures. You could name 10 possible inspirations for BoJack and Sarah Lynn because they began as an amalgam of a somewhat common archetype in Hollywood: the washed-up sitcom actor and the former child star turned teen idol turned struggling addict. Other characters include the lovable, optimistic sitcom actor, the incompetent nepo baby, the powerful man who is well-liked by the public and gets away with SA, the pretentious showrunner who thinks he's deeper than he is. For the most part, the characters can pretty easily be divided within two categories: the ones who are developed beyond their tropes, and the ones who really only exist as their tropes. Take Princess Carolyn as the stereotypical cutthroat Hollywood agent. That trope informs her character. She never loses those traits, but she is allowed the chance to develop in, with, and outside of those traits. At the end of the series, she finds love and is able to get a healthier work-life balance. Diane, Mr. Peanut Butter, and even BoJack also fit seamlessly on this side. The latter characters usually exist to comment on the industry, either as a joke or to emphasize a real issue. Or you have someone like Charlie Witherspoon who does both. He serves as a comedic character with his character design, quotable lines, and slapstick humor, and he also comments on the industry's tendency to prioritize hiring out of nepotism, even if the candidates are unqualified.
Oh God, am I blowing this?
For most of the characters, it's fairly easy to sort them cleanly into these two groups, but Sarah Lynn is an exception, landing somewhere in the middle. For one, she isn't around nearly enough to be a main character. Outside of expositional flashbacks, Sarah Lynn doesn't have her own storylines like Diane or Todd. All of what we see of Sarah Lynn in the present is tied to BoJack. We can make our own assumptions, but the reality is, besides this very brief snapshot from the episode wherein she literally dies, we don't know what her life looks like outside of BoJack and his limited view of her. We can't even take anything she says from the view from halfway down as canonical because it's all happening inside of BoJack's own head. And yet, she seems too pivotal to the story to be labeled as an occasional side character. Sarah Lynn exists in this strange middle ground between tropey characters like Vance and Flip, and more fleshed out ones like Diane and Princess Carolyn. She is a character, but she's also what she represents. Sarah Lynn might want to develop beyond her archetype, but the series never lets her outrun it. And maybe that is the point, a cautionary tale. Sarah Lynn's story has to end in tragedy because she largely exists to comment on society and the media's treatment of young starlets. Because if the purpose of her character is commentary, maybe the show thought if she lived, it would only minimize the severity of the problem that it is. Still, with the knowledge that the writers knew her fate from the beginning, that she was never given thought to become something else, to exist beyond her narrative, it's hard not to feel like lines that test the inevitability of her death have an edge of almost cruelty.
And everyone was just standing around like, well, this was bound to happen, but it wasn't bound to happen.
In every way that matters, Sarah Lynn is doomed by the narrative. So my vision is terrible, and I have to get my contact prescription updated constantly because it changes so often. And calling to make appointments is the bane of my existence. It's on the list of things that I know I need to do, but the dread of doing them overwhelms me so deeply that I am struck frozen. And on paper, calling to make an appointment is not difficult. None of these tasks are, but there's something in my brain that just refuses to face them head on. And despite knowing that putting them off only makes the situation worse, that's somehow not enough for me to just do the thing. For these reasons, and many more, I use today's sponsor, ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors, choose the right one for your needs, and click instantly to book an appointment. And ZocDoc isn't just for one type of care. They have more than 100,000 providers from nearly every specialty. No need to call doctors' offices and wait on hold either. ZocDoc lets you do everything online. With ZocDoc, you can filter for doctors by insurance, location, and specialties, and see reviews by verified patients so you can choose the best, most convenient care for you. When you found the doctor you need, you can see their actual appointment openings. Plus, ZocDoc helps you get appointments fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking, and you can even score same-day appointments. Stop waiting and get the care you need. Go to zocdoc.com/SloanStowe to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. I'll be candid, I kind of dragged my feet getting to this section because BoJack's relationship with Sarah Lynn is arguably the most complex one in the entire series. I really struggle to understand it. You can get the general gist and specific types of toxicity in his relationships with other characters in just a couple of sentences. But I wouldn't know how to do that with Sarah Lynn. Their dynamic is much harder to define. For one, it spans decades, and in that time both of the characters change significantly, so their perceptions of each other do too. But it was trying to untangle all of the contradictions that truly, fully stumped me. I don't want to spend too much time pointing out the obvious, or covering what's already been talked about to death, no pun intended. So instead of zeroing in on BoJack's role in her childhood or mistakes he made with her character, I want to get into this idea of mythologization. To BoJack, Sarah Lynn is different from every other woman in his life. She is special to him. He says in a moment of impulsive honesty that he loves her.
Sarah Lynn wasn't like those other girls. I loved Sarah Lynn.
But I just don't see it. It doesn't add up to me. And by that, I don't mean that I can't fathom how he could wait to call 911 for 17 minutes if he loved her. You can love someone and be terrible to them. Obviously, don't try this at home, but that's practically a requisite of some of the best written, most interesting relationships on television. And I eat them up every time. But even when it's an unhealthy, toxic, manipulative, contradictory, how the hell could someone do this to someone they love type of love, there are still moments where you see the love. But I don't see that from BoJack. If we break down his actual actions toward her, the only kindness BoJack shows Sarah Lynn that isn't rooted in his own self-interest is when he gives her the terrible advice she internalizes that her value is tied to success.
You don't stop dancing and you don't stop smiling and you give those people what they want.
When he tells her to stay sober despite later inviting her on a bender the moment her sobriety isn't convenient for him.
What? No, just stay sober.
And when he finally agrees to go to Griffith Observatory right after he feels bad for her, which ends in her actual death.
Nobody is doomed. And I'll tell you what we're gonna do. We're gonna go to the planetarium.
Really?
So when BoJack says that Sarah Lynn was different from everyone else and that she's the only woman he's ever loved, it feels mawkish and unearned to me. At first I thought that, like the media and the public, her death caused him to retroactively shape their relationship into something more hallowed than it was when she was alive. But he expresses this opinion on their bender before her death, so that can't be it, or at least not all of it. In this monologue, when he best tries to verbalize his feelings for Sarah Lynn, he says, "You know, sometimes it feels like you're the only one who really understands me, because how could anyone else? But we knew each other before we were anybody, and that's how we can be friends, because we're not like those other people. The people who glom onto you because of who they think you are. And they think they can sleep on your couch and eat your food. They think you're gonna save their agency. I never asked for that kind of pressure, but you and me, we don't want anything from each other. You know, I could never figure out what love meant, but right now, I don't need to figure out anything. I just feel it. I love you, Sarah Lynn. There is so much to cover here. Firstly, in this epiphany, he credits Horse and Around as this special cosmic foundation that indelibly ties them together and that no one else could possibly understand. But it all rests on superficial nostalgia because in the show's 9 seasons of production, BoJack was utterly indifferent to Sarah Lynn. And it's not like Horse and Around was a two-hander. Joelle and Ethan are also significant to the show, but BoJack doesn't share the same sentiments with them and has little to no interest in keeping in touch with them or even staying on good terms. Here, when BoJack says, the people who glom onto you because of who they think you are, and they think they can sleep on your couch and eat your food, they think you're going to save their agency, he's referring to Diane, Todd, and Princess Carolyn, arguably the 3 most significant people in his life, all of whom love him truly and authentically. These relationships are genuine, and because of that, they inevitably come with expectations and conflict and effort, which, for the record, is arguably BoJack's biggest practical struggle, providing continuous daily effort for himself and for others. He prefers the idea of things, like his fantasy of ditching his actor life and moving to Maine to be with Charlotte, as if making one decision would have presented him with this perfect life. He wants something that exists in a sitcom, in a world where every conflict is resolved with a happy ending in 20 minutes, a world that isn't real, that doesn't require consistent effort. But what is love if not consistent effort? Yet, in this epiphany, BoJack defines love as the antithesis of it. He says, I never asked for that kind of pressure, but you and me, we don't want anything from each other. You know, I could never figure out what love meant, but right now, I don't need to figure out anything. I just feel it. I love you, Sarah Lynn. The tragedy of this line is that the only reason Sarah Lynn doesn't have expectations of BoJack is because he taught her from a very young age not to. She sought genuine connection from him for so many years throughout the 9 seasons of Horse and Around. Even after when she hits global stardom and BoJack visits her at the concert just to try to get her to guest star on his failing new show, initially she still has that excitement and hopefulness.
BoJack? Oh my god, bring him in!
When BoJack gives her the real reason why he's there, any hope Sarah Lynn had for a genuine connection with her TV dad is crumbled.
Thanks again for coming. Like I said, it's always nice to see, you.
Raphael described this scene as the moment that broke her. In many ways, this was her breaking point. It cemented her cynical worldview and distrust of others and pushed her to stop caring and start taking advantage of people the way they take advantage of her, which is who she's become when we meet her. So no, Sarah Lynn doesn't want anything from BoJack because BoJack has consistently relayed the message that he cannot be depended on, that he is uninterested in knowing her as a person, that he only cares about her when she can do something for him, guest star on his show, ease his guilt, be a companion on his bender. So for BoJack, with absolute conviction, to equate his relationship with this version of Sarah Lynn as the pinnacle of love, just shows how broken and flawed BoJack's understanding of love really is. There is endless critique around the characters in BoJack Horseman, but one person who tends to be omitted from these conversations or afforded the most leniency is Sarah Lynn. I don't think we can fairly talk about Sarah Lynn without acknowledging the tendency the fandom has to infantilize her character, even when she's well into her 30s. Diane prophetically addresses this discourse of her character way back in season 1.
I worry that conversations like this one often dismiss her as a mere puppet of the industry.
That's my same worry.
Incapable of engaging in these discussions herself.
One example, something that I see a lot, is when people say or imply that BoJack forced her to go on the bender. Well, it was absolutely selfish of BoJack to invite Sarah Lynn on a bender knowing she was sober. The same reality is that Sarah Lynn admitted that she only stayed sober to lower her tolerance, so when she decided to do drugs again, they would feel stronger. She never intended to stay sober. Her entire house was made of drugs. It's not unfair to state that there is a pretty sizable portion of fans who view Sarah Lynn as faultless in adulthood. There are many factors that go into this. For one, her voice actor plays a big role, with Kristen Schaal also being the voice behind several beloved TV characters. I think a lot of it also boils down to her potential, not necessarily who she was as an adult, but who she was prevented from becoming. We naturally feel a fond familiarity for Sarah Lynn because we've seen her before. for, in actors who have given up their childhoods to entertain ours. And it's hard to imagine that her death doesn't play a role. When certain famous people die young, or tragically, often there's this public refusal to see them as anything but perfect in life. It doesn't matter if they were bullied or adored in life. When they die, their slate is crystal clear. And I'm guilty of this too. If someone says anything bad about Robin Williams or Ray Bradbury, I don't want to hear it. It's like, get it away from me. They're perfect. It's this form of mythologization where they become symbols more than people. The series even comments on this phenomenon, with the media doing a 180 towards Sarah Lynn after her death, despite ruthlessly criticizing her when she was alive. In death, she becomes immortalized as something almost greater than human, which is echoed in the lyrics from her performance in The View from Halfway Down. The big picture outweighs the details, but in the details, I think this is a case of both things being true. As an adult, Sarah Lynn has agency. She consistently enables herself. But in the big picture, there's nuance and context. There's an undeniable lack of agency prevalent throughout her story that impacts everything. Ophelia is an apt comparison, and clearly one the writers want us to make. But honestly, Sarah Lynn really reminds me of Peter Pan. Not the Disney version, or the 2003 adaptation, my beloved, but the actual book by J.M. Barrie, which might also be one of the saddest books I've ever read. It's a well-known story. Peter Pan is a boy who never wants to grow up, and he lives in Never Never Land, where he doesn't have to. He spends every day living this hedonistic existence, flying around, fighting pirates, having fun, but he still has this hole inside of him.
I want always to be a boy and have fun.
You say so, but I think it is your biggest pretend.
The movie adaptations aren't so different from the book, but what the films don't fully address is that Peter Pan is a tragic figure. Peter is always aware that he has the choice to leave Neverland and return to London and grow up, but to have the maturity to understand that aging is pivotal to moving forward and escaping the purgatory he's stuck in would mean that he has to grow the tiniest bit to understand that, and he can't. He's incapable of it. To have that realization is at odds with his entire being. It would contradict his nature of rejecting growth, so it remains forever just out of arm's length.
I taught you to fight and to fly. What more could there be?
There is so much more.
What? What else is there?
I think it becomes clearer when you grow up.
Well, I will not grow up. You cannot make me.
There's this quote from the book after Wendy and her brothers decide to leave Neverland and return home. Peter watches from their bedroom window as they reunite with their parents. The passage goes, "There could not have been a lovelier sight, but there was none to see it except a strange boy who was staring in at the window. He had ecstasies innumerable that other children can never know, but he was looking through the window at the one joy from which he must be forever barred." Peter remains frozen in time, never learning, never changing, forever stuck, living the same day over and over and over again, until everything blurs together and he forgets everyone who dies or outgrows him. There's something so devastating about it. There's this tragic irony in the seemingly avoidable inevitability that he has an endless amount of time, more than anyone else could ever have, and yet it's somehow still too late for him. Sarah Lynn reflects this same contradiction. Comparatively, she may be aware on a surface level that she could go to rehab, that she could leave Hollywood behind and live a more fulfilling life, that she could get a better support system, that she has the financial means to go to a school to fulfill her dreams of becoming an architect. Nothing is physically stopping Sarah Lynn from reaching out and taking the future she wants. But she has so many things melded into her foundation that hold her back. She has no real frame of reference of what it's like not to be famous. Her entire life set her up to depend on instant gratification. By 30, she can't stand being bored for more than 5 seconds. Her brain cannot handle it. She constantly has to stimulate herself in some way, whether it be with drugs, alcohol, a public relationship, or just being on her phone.
This sucks. You guys suck. I don't even know why I came to this party.
It's not a party.
I'm not okay. I'm bored. This hotel room is boring. What's on TV?
And all of these things in tandem only degrade her sense of worth, which makes change feel impossible. So instead, she walks around with this morbid, vacant, dreamlike understanding that she is doomed, knowing that her friends are sycophants but not trying to get new ones, wondering if it's too late for her to be an architect but never taking the steps to become one, knowing that if she continues on the path she's on, she'll die, but not caring enough to do anything about it, or not knowing where to even start. up to her death, always wanting more.
I want to be an architect.
Okay, I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe.